I know Eric's really interested, always been very interested in watches and the whole
for those in
part of it.
I want a job. So one of you watch people.
We'll get there.
I want a job.
Hey guys, we're here in the outskirts of Las Vegas at the Southern Highland Golf Club. We're just about to meet with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, who are the two rock stars of the rock band Kiss. So let's talk about wine, let's talk about watches. Hi guys, it's Ellen. I'm here with Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer, which are one of the two main characters of the Kiss band, one of the biggest rock band in the basically 20th century or 21st century. So by the end of probably this year or next year, it's going to be the end of the world tour and probably the end of the band. So what's going on with that?
Well, we are on tour, and because of the pandemic and everything, we got delayed for about 2 years on our end of the world tour, which is we're on right now. So we've been delayed, so we're continuing on. We're going to be on the road now for another year or so.
We just found a couple of dates in order to see you on stage and for you to buy a couple of watches and you discover another wine stuff, because the thing that we're going to talk about today is watches with this guy and wine with that guy.
That's right.
Yep.
Watches and wine.
Watches and wine, which is a pretty big topic. If we go back a little bit in time and speaking about how this whole friendship started off of basically working together, how did that relationship evolve over time?
I've known Tommy a long time before we played together. So Tommy and I both, I'm from Cleveland, Tommy's from Portland. We both gravitated to LA when the big music scene, which was unlike any other time in music, at least for us, in the 80s, LA was the place to be. Tommy was already down there. Here's the irony of the whole thing. I had just moved there in the end of '83, and I joined some local band, and one of the guys in the band said, "Eric, let's go check this band out. They just got signed to a record deal on Geffen Records." So you can get an idea of what kind of bands and what kind of music they're signing. So you had nothing to go on. I was completely, I would say, very naive and green in that particular time of my life. So we went to the Roxy, which is a famous club on Sunset Boulevard, and the band that was playing that we went to see was Tommy's band, Black and Blue. So the first band that I saw, the first concert I saw in LA was Tommy's band, but I didn't know him yet.
And then like it?
Yeah, and that the whole idea was, well, I remember saying to myself, the drummer and the guitar player is really good, and everybody always kind of, usually there's always one or two guys that stand out in a band that you kind of pick out and say, I really like the singer, or I really like a guitar, but whatever. But I remember those two individuals standing out. And then as time went on, I would see Tommy around, and he'd see me around, because everybody would hang around on Sunset Boulevard on the weekends. And there would always be something happening, some show. So I kind of eventually got to know Tommy that way, and then we had some mutual friends. And then eventually, we jammed a little bit together for Jamie's wedding and stuff like that. And then we actually did demos. By a few years later, I started working with Paul Stanley doing some demos for Kiss, and Tommy would be at the studio doing demos for them as well, or for Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons produced Tommy's band Black and Blue, 2 of their records. So it's a very incestuous business, if you will. But like Tommy and I go back a long time before we actually played in the band. And then lo and behold, in 2002, Tommy did his first gig with the band, and then he became the guitar player. He's been in the band for 20 years. And then I've been in and out a few times, but this version of Kiss now with Tommy and myself is the longest running version of Kiss of any version. This band's been together now almost close to 20 years, this lineup.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys celebrated 2002 or 2022, and you guys are closing together, I guess, a chapter of that history. So what's going to happen next?
Well, we're going to continue this tour, the never-ending end of the road world tour. We're going to be out for another year or so, probably back some different parts of the world that
probably
soon to be announced.
Europe.
You never know. A lot of people, there's fans that want to continue to see Kiss before it's over, and we're just trying to fulfill that need and desire from people. So
the fact that it's close to be over, do you think you're gonna go back to being in a band? Do you think you're gonna keep? I mean, you will always play music because that's part of your DNA. But
I think Tommy would probably agree with me. There's a famous quote that John Lennon, at least is attributed to John Lennon of the Beatles. He said, "Life is what happens while you're making plans." And that was in one of the hotels like 25 or 30 years ago on the nightstand. And sometimes you have a little proverb or something or a saying. And I saw that. I kept it. I still have it to this day. That I still have that same little card. And so I've kind of let that become my mantra, if you will, about life, because it's so true. You can think you're going to be on one course, and next thing you know, you're headed in another direction. Life will throw you some real twists and turns. So I try to just take each show for what it is, one day at a time, make the best of it, enjoy it for what it is, and however it's going to come to an end, I think I'd rather be surprised.
Yeah, I don't think either of us are really planning, the next 5 years of our lives necessarily. We know that we're going to be touring with KISS for at least another year right now. But after that, I think we both kind of agree also that it probably is not going to be a band for one of us. At least I know for sure I'm not going to continue playing in bands and things. I mean, first of all, how can you be in another band if you've been KISS for 20, 25 years? I mean,
it's kind of difficult.
It doesn't get any better than that. But also, it's not really what I want to do. There's other things that I have interest in, like winemaking and different types of things like that. And I know Eric's really interested, always been very interested in watches and the whole
for those in
part of it.
I want a job. So one of you watch people.
We'll get there.
I want a job.
We will get there. But I mean, it's actually a true thing that at some point, at the end of a career or a chapter, you guys have been on the road, have been rock stars, I mean, for the most part of your life. And I'm sure that you had to put a couple of things that you've been wanting to do aside, like a passion of yours or even building a family. I mean, you, Tommy, just discovered recently that you had a daughter, and there's this
incredible.
whole thing of relationship and transmission and making the time that you didn't make at some point. And how did that affect in your life at a turning point, basically? What's happening?
I mean, the fact that I discovered, my daughter and I discovered each other about 2 years ago, which was just mind-blowing. I mean, but it's a complete blessing. She's, in her 30s already, so it was something that happened a long time ago that we didn't know about, and there's a whole story behind it, of course, but it's been life-changing for me. I still can't believe that it actually happened, that I have a daughter now, so that kind of changes my whole perspective on who I am and who's, my heirs and my family and things like that. So it's been a real game changer, but in a really, really positive way, though.
What about you?
He's going to go on 23andMe now and try to find out if he's got some kids.
Actually, I think it is really cool. A lot of people are very skeptical, or they think like, oh, I don't want to give my DNA up. I go, wait a minute. You could find out that you have family members, like people that are adopted, that don't know that they have other siblings, for example, or they don't know the history of their family. And it also helps mainly for your health reasons as well, because as we all know, when you go to doctors, they always want to know your family history. That can have a lot to do with preventive maintenance for your own self. But like Tommy's stories, that's what makes me kind of inspired to definitely want to do it, because I'm like, that's really cool. And his daughter's like really a really, really nice girl. So, or she's a woman now, but she's really cool. And it's like, he's blessed that he didn't find out that he had a train wreck for a kid. You
never know.
Because you don't know what you're going to get. But
and for that matter, she didn't know what she was going to get on this side too.
But it's a nice story.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a nice story, and you guys are about to build a couple of memories together at a time of your life where you're actually going to be able to make some time for her and create some memories together down the line. And speaking of which, I mean, I know you've invested in a vineyard back to Oregon, where you're actually from. Was that something that you were thinking while you were playing, while you were thinking about the next watch you were going to get?
Well, I always wondered the same thing, because I know his brother, Mike, younger brother, has vineyards and was already making wine. And I never knew until Tommy told me that he was going to acquire some vineyards for himself and get into it. I never knew that his brother was into it.
Yeah. My brother Mike has a boutique winery up in Oregon in the Willamette Valley. They specialize in Pinot Noirs, of course, and they have several different varietals. But anyway, he started this about 25 years ago. He has his own farm, and they do a lot of direct marketing up there, and it's very popular in the region. So it's called Pete's Mountain Vineyards. And what we're doing now is I bought some vineyard property near my brother's. It's about 15 acres of, it's actually planted as Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. But I've always had a real affinity for Sauvignon Blanc. And I don't know if I said that very well.
Did.
Can you say, let's hear you say it.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Blanc. You don't say
No, you
blanc.
don't say the C. No,
No,
blanc.
see what I said about you
No.
leave certain in the
Exactly.
French. But anyway, Sauvignon Blanc, and so I've always loved Sauv Blanc, and we decided to do my own Tommy's Reserve Sauvignon Blanc.
Joe,
How different is that from any
And this
other-
is actually kind of I brought this along just so you can see it. This is the hot stamp wood box, and then inside we've got 2 bottles of the Pete's Mountain Tommy's Reserve Sauv Blanc. So
now you have the American version, like you don't actually have the corkscrew.
yeah, we're doing a lot of wines, especially I noticed in
Especially in
Australia, a
Europe.
lot of the Australian wines are just doing screw tops down. It's just a more efficient way to do it. I know it's not the traditional French way, but this is kind of where things are going.
That's cool. I mean,
I think the reason people, I mean, I don't know much about wine, but what I've learned is that there's nothing worse than somebody having a potentially very rare or valuable bottle of wine and then it's got a bad cork and it's spoiled and rotten.
true.
And I know sometimes they can try to save it and recork it. Am I correct?
Yeah, but the thing that's cool about this is that it's really a European style Sauv Blanc. We have a French winemaker up
I
in
like how
Oregon.
he says so blanc. It's like the nickname of it.
I know everybody's going to make fun of this, but now anyway, you've got a great French winemaker up there, and so this is actually more of a European style. It's less New Zealand style, which is very popular now, which is more tart and kind of citrusy. This is more of a Sancerre. It's actually more of a French style.
And can
Sauv
we
Blanc.
find it in Europe?
Not yet, because
Huh.
again, we're not distributing in Europe or even many parts
Is
of
it
the United
still
States.
like a small production that you guys?
It is. We only did
like
250 cases of this,
Okay.
so we're just starting small and just letting it build.
That's cool. And while he does his wine, what do you do?
I'm going to help them drink it.
Actually, Eric likes it too.
I do because I'm not a big, I don't drink much alcohol, but I do like wine. And it's funny how you learn to acquire tastes for things. My dad used to tell me when I was younger because I hate beer. And my father, being from Germany, would say, "Oh, you'll learn to like it." I'm like, never happened. I hate beer. I hate it as much as I did when I was a kid. But wine, I've learned to realize that, I'm not into like the pairing per se, but I do realize that certain wines taste nice with certain kinds of meals or certain foods. And so I love champagne though.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite though. So
Pink?
Tom,
But you
pardon me?
appreciate how
Pink or
different
white?
wines pair well with different foods.
Absolutely. There's certain foods I love red wine, but I like it earlier in the day. But in the summertime,
Early
like
in the day?
Pardon me?
He's just saying out loud that he's not. That's
In
fine.
warmer weather, I'll prefer white wine because I like nice, cold,
Yeah.
like a clean,
Refreshing.
crisp, watery tasting, if you will.
Water?
Or, that more watery taste. That nice, clean taste, I guess, is the right word.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't want it to taste like it ran through rusty pipes, which some of the wines in
I hope
Europe
not.
can taste that way.
He's a
but
wine
I-
critic. You didn't know that?
I was beginning to find this out right now.
I like red wine at nighttime or when it's like
Yeah.
wintertime when it's cold out because it warms you up.
So, you guys have spent quite a little bit of time with both of you, and you're kind of like brothers, best friends, but you're also like on stage together, and you're like what we call in French the tic et tac, like the 2 Disney characters, like the chipmunks.
Yeah, Chip and Dale.
Chip and Dale. So
Yeah.
those are the new nicknames.
Or we
But-
call it the odd couple, actually.
Oh, the
'Cause
odd
we are
couple.
quite,
So I was
we are
right.
quite different, even though we really love hanging out, but we are completely different.
Well,
Don't you
you're
agree?
the calm version. He's like the excited, like
Hyper,
Crazy,
yeah.
yeah.
But the thing is, ironically, I'm a little older than Tommy. I think I'm 2.5 years older. But Tommy grew up in
You show him
Portland.
respect?
Sometimes.
Yeah, Tommy grew up in
When he deserves it.
Tommy grew up in Portland and I grew up in Ohio. But ironically, since we're so close in age, we grew up liking the same bands, the same music. We were even raised the same religion, which he's the only other I was raised Protestant,
church.
Episcopalian.
Yeah.
And he's the only person that I ever met in my whole life to this day that was also raised Episcopalian. I don't even know anybody else that was raised that religion. But so ironically, we come from a very similar type family background, religiously, education-wise, and music. We like all the same music, the same records as kids. We went to the same concerts, just in different parts of the country. So
We grew up in the same era, though, so
Yeah.
all the bands that he loved,
have the
ironically,
same references.
Totally. So today we really enjoy a lot of the same, music and stuff that we grew up on. So when we play together and Kiss, it really makes sense.
I was going to just say
because we
that.
were actually both fans of
It was
Kiss.
a connection. Like
Well,
when
I was
there's
going to
date,
say
there's
that
a
Tommy and I
connection
are a
because-
good pairing as band, not just bandmates, but being in Kiss, because our roots are really almost identical. I probably like a little more jazz and stuff. That's kind of like one of my favorite things on a personal level. But when it comes to rock music and the upbringing and influences, we're almost identical.
So what are the other like rock bands that you both enjoy? Besides Kiss, obviously.
Well, more obscure, well, it might be, to some people, be obscure, like Montrose. We both loved the band Montrose, Ronnie Montrose, guitar player, Pat Travers.
But we both grew up loving Black Sabbath and Deep Purple and Foghat and Bad Company and Led Zeppelin. Those are all the bands that were really happening back in the early to mid 70s. And Kiss.
Led Zeppelin is the only new I knew from all of them.
That's the only one you've heard of. No, but but we both loved Kiss. Ironically, when we were kids, and I know Gene and Paul don't like it when we say that because it makes them sound like they're from a whole different kind of era.
It feels like they're the fathers.
Well, that makes up right. Paul has said
exactly.
Well, Paul, even we've done an interview. Sometimes he goes, "I'm not that much older than him. I'm only 6 years older than Eric," and that's true. But when you're a kid, 6 years old is a big difference. Like when I first saw Kiss, I was 15 years old. Paul was 21. When he was in the band already touring.
He could drink and you couldn't.
Exactly. But the thing is, we have that same common thing. I was a big, Tommy as well, I was genuinely a really big Kiss fan. Yeah. When they first came out, I loved Kiss. They were one of my favorite bands. My mother remembers me cutting the pictures out of the magazine and putting them on. I had an armoire. Did I say it correctly?
No.
Armoire. Anyways, I had one. That's what I had in my bedroom. Was very small, so I could only fit a little armoire in there, and on the side I had the pictures of the bands that I liked. And my mother remembers me cutting those Kiss pictures out when I was 15 years old. So, it's just ironic that we come from a very similar background musically and even family-wise. Our upbringing is very similar.
And retrospectively, like years later, how does it feel to now, be part of the band that you adored growing up?
It's crazy actually, because sometimes I'm on stage and I'm sitting there thinking, I cannot even believe this still.
To that day?
I swear
it's a little surreal. Yeah, he's right.
I get
that
on stage,
sometimes.
even on this last summer, and I remember we ended the show, everything blows up at the end of Rock and Roll Night. We're walking off, and I see Gene and Paul walking in front of me, and I think, I can't believe this. I still cannot believe it, because I idolized these guys when I was younger and stuff, and here we are, Eric and I, doing this, and it's just strange how life works and how things come together like that.
That feeling he's talking about, occasionally, for me, it usually happens in the beginning of the show when we're coming down, the curtain drops, we call it a kabuki, and Tommy and Gene and Paul are on these pods that come down suspended in air. And I many times look out and I look at them as we're coming down, and the bombs are going up, and I see all the people, and I'm going, and I'm going to swear, I'm going like, holy shit. I just think to myself, wow, this is like surreal. I still can't, sometimes it feels like I'm an out-of-body experience, like I'm a different person living in this moment right here.
Plus, there's so many kids in our era that grew up, loving Kiss so much, and so we're really living that dream that every kid that played guitar or drums dreamed about, like being in Kiss, because everybody loved Kiss growing up. They were huge influence on everybody.
I've seen a couple of your shows, and thanks to you, I've been like privileged to some of them, and when you look at the audience, it's multi-generational. You have kids, but you also have teenagers, and you have old people, and it's like
everybody.
It's crazy how it gathers everything together like a transmission thing. And obviously, I'm drawing a parallel to the watch industry and to the wine thing, because it's kind of shared passion where it's been transmitted from one generation to another, like something that you really want to experience to some extent.
I always tell people that everyone should see Kiss at least once. It's like going to Disneyland. It's part of Americana.
Well, it's kind of Disneyland, but for adults, for grown-ups. When you see the costume and the
it's a rock and roll circus. It really is.
But the reason it works so well, in like the comparison to watches or wine and things, it's really timeless and it's classic. It's because of the makeup and the imagery, it doesn't look, that looks like a band from the 80s or Kiss. It's his own.
It's ageless.
It's ageless, exactly, and that's continues to work. That's why new generations come along and kids, and you have everybody there because it works on that level of like Superman or Marvel heroes and things like that. It's a timeless, ageless thing, and that's so unique and cool.
To the difference, like without makeup, we can recognize you because of your hair. Without makeup, you're still like you can go off roads without being noticed too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I'm the spaceman. I walk into.
Keep your hair like this.
Probably not. I think a big part of why I mean, this is my hair. I've been very blessed to have great hair and stuff, but I wouldn't normally probably just have this hair like this unless I was in KISS.
Of course.
But then again, like you said, if I walk into the room or the restaurant, everybody's like, okay, we know, he's either in KISS or he's got to be in one of those bands.
Or he's a big fan.
Or he's a total poser.
My hair was really short at one point. Not quite as short as his, but it was short. I kept it shorter because my hair was down to my waist at one point, and I was just over it. And but then I was like, oh, I guess I got to let my hair grow again.
But well, I mean, you guys are part of a rock band, so you have a rock attitude. Actually, how do you define rock and roll?
Oh boy, we were talking about that earlier. It's really tough to do that because it's such a big general. I mean, rock is so all-encompassing now. I think it's an attitude. It's really a feeling and a spirit of, it was more rebellion and things like that. Now it's just, it's these bands and this classic stuff that people it's so much part of who we are and our DNA, what we grew up as, and, it's the music and everything is really the story of our lives.
Yeah, I think with rock and roll, the rules are being made and being broken simultaneously, because when people first started, in the early inception of rock and roll, people used to think, oh, by the time you're 30, you can't be playing in a band. I remember the famous story was the Rolling Stones. They asked them when they were turning 30, mind you, are you going to still do rock and roll at 30? And Mick Jagger said, as long as we have teenage frames, which means as long as we're thin and look like young, we'll keep doing it. And that was when they were turning 30. Yeah. Now some of them are 80. Something. And they're still doing it, so God bless them. I think it's fantastic.
And I've heard Gene and Paul say time and time again that they had no idea when the band first hit back in the 70s, that they had no idea. You couldn't fathom this still happening now in 2022 the way it has.
Next year will be KISS's 50th anniversary, 2023.
And the band is doing just as big, if not bigger, business than they ever have. And the merchandising and all the ancillary.
One thing you were talking about. It's crazy.
It's just over the top. So it's a great business, and KISS is huge internationally all over the world, and we're just going to keep going for about another year.
Yeah, this year, ironically, more to Tommy's point, we went to South America, to Europe and Australia, and they were some of the most, if not the most successful tours.
Yeah.
How do you define a successful tour?
Well, a lot of people being there. That's just the bottom line.
Tickets sold, the money, the gross revenues, the merchandising. But the band is really good still. I mean,
you guys get along. You guys are friends. You guys joke around. You guys have.
We all get along. Everybody in the band gets along. Yeah. Look, it's not easy.
It's not even a BS on camera.
No.
Like
the thing is,
just generally.
When you look at the four of you,
you were there. You've been around us and stuff.
I would say this: if you can get along with, if 90% of how you feel towards the people you work with is good, there's never going to be 100%. I'm sure there's things about myself that these guys don't like, and there's things that annoy me about them occasionally, but it's so minuscule. The majority of the time, I mean, I always say to myself, we actually like each other, and we do actually get along. And that's for real.
And it's really the key to a band succeeding in the long run, because the demise of most all groups is that interpersonal, the egos and people not getting along and starting to hate each other, and then the band breaks up. I mean, you've seen it a million times.
Yeah, of course. But actually, now I have $1 million question, because speaking of merchandise and the 50th anniversary, obviously the first question that comes to mind is, are you going to do a limited edition watch to celebrate that anniversary? Watch brands are very good at celebrating anniversary of one thing or another.
What brand?
What brand, or are you guys going to actually have a watch? Are you going to have a watch made for the anniversary?
Well, we'll see. I know there's been some, I don't want to speak too soon on it, because that's Doc McGee, the manager's job to do. Mm-hmm. But I know there was some discussions about maybe doing something. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. I hope it does.
Because to some extent, I mean, I've been talking about with you, and I've been seeing you wearing different watches, and I mean, guys, what you're wearing right now in your watch is not as rebellious as what you expect from a rock band, by the way.
No.
But we'll get into that.